Hello, and welcome back to our AP Laser Workshop. Thank you all for joining us today. We're doing something a little bit different. We're going large format, or as some of us might say, we took the AP Laser and made it bottomless. I was gonna wear shorts today, but it's just too cold here right now, and I'm a little bit under the weather. I'm toughing it out because I got some kind of seasonal thing going around. Not the COVID, but or my wife says, you sound like a man. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. I thought it did anyways, but anyway, so what's going on right now is it's actually in the middle of running a panel. We've got a door underneath the laser, and we've used, it's in panels, glass panels that we're doing we're doing multiple layers on, giving it a really cool effect. What we're going to go over, what we're going to cover a little bit today is how we set up this file and the process that we're using to run it, and how we segregated the file to format to meet the format of our door. Right now, I'll go ahead and start by saying what we're running is a 3-inch lens on glass because of the inset of the glass panel on the door. It's about that far down. You know, it's about 3/4 of an inch down in the material. So we have to use a 3-inch lens. But then we also need to use an 1812 lens nozzle. The 1812 lens nozzle has a bigger hole in it. We can't just use our 2-inch lens nozzle because the way that the laser condenses down, it won't be condensed down enough on the 2-inch lens without clipping our laser beam and taking away some of our laser power. So if you want to get your hands on one of those 1812 lens nozzles, you can go to our store on, you can go to our AP Laser website. It's aplaser.com/shop, and then there is a link that was shared for the 1812 lens nozzle. If it says it's out of stock, because right now we're moving, and I'm really excited, big moves, there's going to be really big things happening. And because not everything's synced up right now, we want to make sure we're not getting oversold on certain items. If it shows out of stock, go ahead and call our AP Laser Tech Support team. That's 844-364-8211, and that is 24/7 tech support. And they will help you. They'll either get one ordered for you, and if they do get in the back order, because a lot of the stuff is pretty popular right now. If they do get in the back order, then they'll go ahead and put you on a list and let you know when it comes in. So you'll have that for when you need to do something like this. But again, the reason we're using that nozzle is on the 3-inch lens. If we use the regular cone that comes with it, it's a little too long, and so the cone itself would hit the wood as we're trying to engrave it on the door. So use the shorter cone from the 1812, which has a larger hole opening and allows us to not interfere with the laser beam. And also, we coated the glass with a secret recipe, and it's only a secret because Dawn won't share the recipe with me, but all we used was Dawn dish soap. Very specifically, Dawn dish soap. Now, I know that there's been some discussion and debate over this. Some people have used soap and starch, or baking powder, or paper towel, and vinegar, or water, or soap, and all these other concoctions and recipes to engrave their glass on. But I've tested them all, and I haven't gotten anything that's gotten a better result than Dawn dish soap. I can't use Palmolive. I can't use the generic store brand. I can't use things that claim to be like Dawn, because for some reason there's something about Dawn that is unique in its viscosity and its texture and its composition that just gives me a successful engraving every time on glass, whether it's Pyrex or tempered glass or cheap glass, expensive glass, crystal, all of the above. I've used just straight dish soap, Dawn dish soap specifically, and done it. Now, I know in the laser business, we're always trying to save a few bucks here and there. Dawn dish soap is not the place to save a few dollars, okay? Go ahead and go to Costco, go to Sam's, go to Walmart, go to Meijer if you have one. Whatever your local store is, buy the big bottle of Dawn dish soap and use that just for your lasering glass. Again, excuse me if I keep wiping my nose or itching my nose. You can hear it in my voice. I'm sure I am a little bit under the weather, but I made sure I was here so you guys didn't want to cancel our last one before the holidays.
You want to cut into the file?
No, yeah, just a second. Michelle says I get a better result on crystal with the green glass tape than the Dawn, but I can only use it on cylindrical or flat glass. Okay. And I haven't tried the green glass tape. That's the one thing I haven't tried yet, but now I'm going to, because if there's a better way of doing things, I want to do it, right? But either way, I still always get positive results with the Dawn dish soap, and I've been trying these laser tapes, but I guess when I say the Dawn's worked the best, it's always been in comparison to the at-home recipes. I should clarify. I haven't tried the tapes yet, but I'm going to now. I will order some, and then after the first of the year, when we start getting back into these, we'll have some glass involved at some point that I will work on trying these orange laser tape or the green laser tape. We used the Blazer Orange like 15 years ago. It was a little more spendy now than it was back then. Anyways, yeah, the 3-inch lens seems to give me very positive results for glass. Michelle says, but I do need to try different lenses. And the 3-inch lens gives you, I think, it gives me a little bit more, less abrasive, but still less abrasive lasering, which is kind of what I want for glass, but still lets me use the power the way I need to. So I just have to up my power just a little bit to get there. Anyways, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn this over to Alicia. Alicia's going to show us a little bit of the file setup that we did for this. When I say we, I mainly mean she. We started with the vector file. There was a team effort here. There was a couple that worked on the file to begin with, but she really did the work from once it was fully vectorized into the separation. I'm going to turn it over to her so she can explain how that went.
All right, can you hear me okay? Everything good here? Awesome, all right. So yeah, like he said, it was kind of a team effort getting this initial design together, but we just kind of made this pretty little vector file we thought would look nice on the door itself. And from there, we actually had Leland. She did an awesome job getting the measurements, the exact measurements of all of the window panes for us. And we took that into Photoshop and just kind of separated everything so that we could see which spaces we needed to fill and which spaces were going to be that wood piece that we would be running into otherwise. So once we have like that initial measurements and everything set up, we can go over into our vector file wherever you have that saved. And we actually have this separated into 2 pieces, if you can see here. We have a lighter piece. We're running that at a bit lesser power to get a more light look on that glass. And then we have this darker piece that we're running as well. So they kind of work in tandem, but they're going to have a different effect on that glass and give you a really kind of 3-dimensional design. So we're going to go ahead and take just the one piece here. We can just do a Control-A, Control-C, real easy. Pop it back over to Photoshop. We can Control-V or paste, whatever's easiest for you. And then you can see we got that in here and we have everything scaled the way we want it to. And so that's going to be its own separate layer there. We can go back in here, grab that second piece, copy that again, and paste it over top of this guy. We'll center there. Give it a second to load. It's kind of a big project, so we'll wait for that to work there. While that's loading, I can kind of give you a sneak peek of what we got running in the machine right now, I suppose. So this is kind of like a blocked off piece here where we have that separation. You can see we're running it at the different speeds and powers there. Well, same speed, different power for each. And then we can go ahead and drop that down and that load here. Okay, we got that guy. And paste the other one in there. Pixels, okay. And hit enter, let that render in. Give it just a second there, perfect. Okay, so now we got these 2 layers on top of that measured piece there. And all we're gonna do from there is we can hide both of these for a second, go down to where we have those groups. And all I did, I'm sure there's other ways you can do this, but if you go up to select, and we can do select color range, and I'm gonna hit this purple here. You can see it's highlighting all of those boxes there. And we can hit OK. And then I'm actually gonna hit select, and we're gonna inverse that so it's selecting the white. And pop up to layer 3. Make sure we have that selected, and then we can just hit backspace. And it gets rid of everything in that white space where the wood would be. That way we're not getting the image in those places. So we can go ahead and hide that real quick. We're gonna do the same thing for layer 4. We have those white spaces selected. Go ahead, backspace. And we can deselect, and we have everything kind of split into those panels, real easy. And then to transfer this into our program, we can go ahead, and I just like to hide everything so we have like this plain background here. And we can take this image, we'll do an export. I like to do quick export as PNG. Just save it whatever to your desktop. I'm gonna say door design. Go ahead and hit enter there. And then we can open up a new file in Lightburn. You can also use RDWorks, but as we've mentioned many times before, Lightburn is definitely our go-to here in the office. So we have our new space here that we can go ahead and import. We're gonna find that door design. Let's do image files, make it a little easier. And right here, there we go. And we'll hit open. Or maybe not. Let's go back here. And actually, since we're going to be doing the separate layers, I'm going to export these separately. So let's do, wait for my program to load. Photoshop's a little picky. I definitely think you're going to probably have a little bit of an easier time with Corel. It's going to be the same kind of process where you're separating those layers. It's just going to be laid out a little differently in the program. But, you know, use whatever works best for you. It's just Photoshop's what I was trained in, so it makes it a little easier for me. So we can go ahead, wait, see if we can get this to load. If not, let's see if we can try importing this guy again. Door design. Oh, okay. It's the fun part about Photoshop. Let's see what we can do. There we go. We're getting some progress here. Maybe. Let's close this guy up, and that might free up a little space on the computer there. We don't need to save that. We'll be okay. And let's see. Program working a little better here. Are there any questions in the chat while I'm
yes, there is. Hey,
figuring this guy out?
Sorry. Great question. Yes, she is using Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator. The same thing can be done in Corel with relative functions. Mm-hmm. I don't have those exact menus specifically right now, but yes, everything can be done with in Corel instead of using AI. It's going to be using CDR.
Let's try this again. I'm gonna export. Let's do export as.
So one thing I wanted to mention is why we have this this door. It takes a little bit of time. Okay, each panel is taking roughly anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes, depending on the detail that's on the panel for each panel. And when you have 12 panels, that can turn into a little bit of work. But the time that it's taking, you know, if anybody's been in the market and shopping for doors lately, they know how you know how much people are paying for doors. If you take a door that costs us just a couple $100, you can easily sell a door with this kind of design for, you know, a pretty significant markup to justify the cost of doing a project like this. If somebody's looking for a door like this, they know they're going to pay for a door like this.
Oh yeah. Okay. So.
Frank asked, how can you look at the glass and know the settings you need to run? With experience, Frank. I've been testing and doing this stuff from the beginning, so I just kind of get an idea based on the effect I want of it, just in my mind. And maybe it's a gift from doing it so often, but I will look at it, like with this glass, I looked at it, and based on the kind of the strength as I felt, you can sense the different properties in glass and what you've looked at enough to know if it's tempered or not tempered, and cheap glass versus expensive glass, and you know, and then changing the lens. I didn't go completely blind. I did have her settings that she used beforehand, but I also kind of just knowing my own assumption or knowing my own experiences, I was able to land on. I think for this one we're doing 28 and
2833 for the darker.
Right, 28 and 33 for the darker, and 28 and 20 for the lighter side. And it was, again, based on using if I was using a 2-inch lens, I would need to go a little bit lower on my darker. I would probably need to be at like a 28 and 28 or 28 and 25. And then for the 2-inch lens, she landed on a 20. She was actually a slower speed, and I just want to speed it up. But I would actually be at like a 28 and 15 kind of place for the lighter engraving. It's really just getting with the experience. But yes, right now with the 3-inch lens, we're running the darker effects at 28 and 33, and no, that's 28 and 45.
No, 28 and 33 is what's on the final project. This is just imported.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So you got it.
Sorry, 28 and 33 and 28 and 20.
Yes.
Using a 3-inch lens.
Okay, so if we come back to my screen here, I've got my file loaded in. I had a preloaded file, but basically you can export as a PNG and just kind of load it in here. And what I've done is I took those and I went ahead and I traced them all within Lightburn so that I could separate them a little better and just kind of see what I was working with. But I also, as well, I didn't want the red and the blue lines to overlap. If we go back into Photoshop here and close this guy. No, it's still, oh, okay. There we go. You can see that we have overlap between the two layers, and I didn't want that while it was running. So I went ahead in Lightburn and I separated those. As you can see, the red is going through the blue parts, but it's not going in the same place that it's going to engrave. And if we pull it up in the preview here, you can see that it's just nothing's overlapping, it's just gonna run in between those spaces there. So we're not gonna get overlappings on the two engravings. So we got everything in here, but we do have everything is just kind of one big file right now, which obviously we can't run that whole file all at once because of the higher wooden panes between each of the glass panels. So to separate those out, I just kind of see, we can do this, group this all together there. So we have all this together, but I want to do each one of these as one separate project. So you can take the whole thing, and I just kind of ungrouped everything so everything is its own piece here. You see that? And since we have it nicely separated out, it'll be really easy just to go in here. You can select all those pieces and then go up to the top here with the groups selection, and you can group them all as one piece. And then you can see now we have this one piece for the first window pane. And you can do the same thing with all of these, and since we have everything separated correctly and we have the different layers correctly, you can just group everything together, and then you got your second pane. And then just to have everything ready to run, you can go ahead and just kind of, what I did for mine is you just get rid of everything, and then you can line it up over here, and then you're ready to go. And then we can scroll back out and Command Z everything, undo, and then we have all our pieces again. And then you can do the same thing, just getting rid of the pieces you don't want, and then saving that as the second piece. And then just kind of over and over again until you got everything set there. If we go into my recent files here, let's see, we can pull it up down here, the glass door files, and my final files, you can see I've got everything pieced down to every single window pane on for the door. So we can open up like door piece 1 here, and then you can see here is that first panel that we ran. And it's just that one, just the blue, there's no red going on in this one. And you can see here, we did do 28 and 33. And then you can see the same thing going through, see door piece number 2. And so now we have that segmented there. Everything is within that border there. And then we have the blue running at the 28 and the 33, and the red running at 28 and 20. So everything you see in red here, which hopefully we'll get to see that in just a moment. Looks like we're getting close. Is just that lighter versus that darker burn on the glass. So it gets a nice separation, makes things a little more three-dimensional, and it has a really nice feel to it. So it's not a crazy complicated process, and again, this is everything I did in Photoshop. You can do that within Corel. You don't have to pay the crazy Photoshop fees. I think Corel's, once you get to know the interface, it's really simple to use, and you have every tool that you'd have in Photoshop in Corel for the most part. And at least you have everything you need to make a file like this one in that program. So it's not too hard to do. Takes a little bit of practice, and I do suggest before I did anything on this door, we had little glass panes that we practiced a bit on just to get a feel for what settings we wanted, how things were actually going to look with the light and the dark, and with overlapping versus the no overlap. So definitely have those test materials around. I think the glass that we practice on was like $2 at Home Depot. So it's, it's not super expensive to go out there and get just a test piece, and you can run several tests, break it up into one piece so that you have those tests going before you do your big project. Any other questions or anything going on there?
Frank asked, how do we determine which will be the lighter etching versus darker etching? Well, it was all in the design of what we decided and the look we wanted out of it. So obviously there's with the layers, and we just used 2 layers on this. If we wanted to, we could have gone 3, 4 layers. But then we're talking about an even more exorbitant runtime, right? And it's really, with glass, I don't see a reason to go more than 2 speeds to give you kind of that 3D-ish 2D effect. But we just chose the part of the image that we wanted to be the feature of the image, and then separated the second layer into its own kind of animal. So it would be the accentuating layer, if you will, that we run at just a slightly lower power.
It's all up to your design, and that's why I also recommend with the tests. I ran tests with the opposite as well, but having what we decided with the blue here, we thought that looked a lot better being the darker versus this little red. It's more of an accent in the design, so it really helps just kind of have that as a little lighter piece. But it's all up to you, the design that you made and the tests that you liked.
The files are not currently available, but I'll check with our design team and make sure that we're okay. If it is available, if you go to our AP Laser University and go to our files section, we'll make it available on our AP Laser University if and when we do make it available, which could be within the next. If it's going to be available, we'll know within the next few hours or so, and then we'll get it posted hopefully within the next 24 to 48 hours. Either way, most of the files we do on this, we're going to make available on our AP Laser University website. And I don't have the link to that off the top right now. But to get to the AP Laser University, you do go to university.aplaser.com. And then once you get signed in, there will be a section called Downloads. And once we go to Downloads, you'll see the files that we do have. This is going to be an expanding. Hold on, that actually may be the wrong section. Let me see here. Yeah, if you go to Downloads and then go to Laserable Files, there'll be templates that are up here, and this is where we'll be sharing. This section will be growing. Okay, this section is going to be growing and evolving. We'll be sharing lots of files in this section. So if you're not already registered on the AP Laser University, please do so. Are you able to show the steps in Lightburn you did to prep your files, or did I completely miss you showing that?
So I kind of went over that a little bit. It was a little rushed since Photoshop wasn't cooperating with me. I did pull up a better file so I can show kind of a little more of the separation. But I will say before I got the red and the blue here, it was just that PNG image. And I took that and all I did was go in and do the Lightburn trace, which since my vector was nicely laid out and separated, it was able to trace everything perfectly for me. But I did import those as the separate with the blue and separate with the red. So I had the two different images, place those into Lightburn, use the trace feature to get these as vectors, and then now we have kind of this master file here. But as I said earlier, you can see where this red and the blue right now, they're not separated. If I ran these just like this red is going to overlap with what already ran on the blue, and that's not an effect that I really like or want on my finished piece there. It's certainly something you could do. It could look cool in different situations, but I think for what we decided on, I wanted to have those separated. So we can just go here. We're going to separate everything so everything is in its own little separate line there. And what I did to get the separate pieces here, let's go ahead and stop that real quick. We're going to take each of these panels and kind of group those together so that they're their own piece. And then you'd go ahead and do that for the red as well. So you can see this is going to be one thing, but these are separate and we want those grouped together because that's going to be on one pane there. And go ahead and show that real quick and we can show everything together. So now all these blue pieces are one piece and all of the red is grouped together as it's one big piece there. But to get them separated so that we don't have any overlap, we can go ahead. What I do is I Control C, Control V, copy paste. So I have two of these and we can go ahead and click. So we have both the blues highlighted, and go up to the center, align both right here at the top, and you line those so they're perfectly fit there. In the end, we don't want to have those two pieces there, but it helps to get them separated. So if we have the blue and the red, just highlight both of those. So we have the blue and the red selected there, and you go over to the sidebar here, and we have the Boolean subtract. Go ahead and hit that. You can, if you do undo and hit that again, it's going to give you a completely different option there. And this is the outcome we want to have. But it turned it blue, so we're going to go ahead, it's still highlighted, hit red or whatever other color just to separate it from that blue there. And then as you can see, that got rid of that extra blue we laid down as well. So if you go ahead and get rid of that, you see we only have one, which is what we want. We want one of each of those. But then you can see there's no line here. It's not going to overlap. So you have kind of the nice separation there. Again, it might not be necessary for your design if you want them to overlap. It could look pretty cool. But with what we had, it just looked nice to have them separate so they're not running over each other.
Rick Martinez asks a couple questions here that I'll answer. New to AP but not to engraving, how do you lay out what gets deeper engraving than a heavier design? I typically use different shading. Can you explain in more detail on how that was designed? And then he also says, also I typically use solid fill to display engraving / etch, but you use only line work. Why? I also use red to signify vector cut and black for rastering. This seems confusing. So if I'm correct, Ray, since you're not new to the engraving world, you may be using a different software, which sometimes has a little bit more limitations, okay? We're working with RDWorks or Lightburn. When using Lightburn, we're using, specifically using a vector file, we're going to have different colors for different layers. Now, what we do with the different layers is up to us to be in absolute control of when we have it in software. We can set on the screen, if we go to Alicia's computer, you can set that to each layer. You can set to fill or line, which fill would be, a raster. Line would be a vector cut, as you call it. And then, or you can set to fill and line, where it's going to take that layer and it's going to raster it, and then it's going to do a trace around it or cut around it. And that allows us to have more control in the software over our speed and power settings and what each layer is going to do. Now, as far as shading, making things darker, the reason we don't use a solid fill is if we use a solid fill and an outline, then it's going to see it as two layers. Okay, which is definitely something we can do, which is something I have done where I made a vector file when I've set it to, I gave it a fill color and an outline, but it's still just going to treat it as two different layers and bring it in, which is may or may not cause issues if you're not sure what you're dealing with. But in the laser, in the software we're using for the AP laser systems, Lightburn specifically right now, which works the same in RDWorks, is we're just going to have different layers, different colors for the different layers. It also applies if we're bringing a bitmap or pixelated type image, whether it's a JPEG or bitmap or PNG. The only difference the difference between that and a vector file now is that we can't do a cut on a vector. We can't do a cut on a pixel type image without doing a trace on it, which has a feature that is built into Lightburn where you can do an image trace to actually get an outline. So if you just wanted to do a raster on a bitmap or image, then certainly we can bring that in Lightburn and we can set it up. And that's when we would use different shading to vary the different intensities or darkness of the laser, but we would still need to have a set speed and power on that. But for the most part, yes, you use Corel with an epilogue laser, yes. They're using Corel with an epilogue laser it's different than what we do. They have different limitations or different capabilities than what our machine has, and ours is designed to give the user absolute control over each layer. And like I said, with our software, we're setting each layer, if we want to, we can set, 25, 24 different layers and have them all different colors and have them all doing different things if we want to. We can have them doing just fill, we can have them or just raster, just vector cut, or raster and vector cut if that's what we so desired. So there are different nuances between using Corel with Epilogue, and then there are also Corel plugins that will work with the RD Works as well. But we find that using the Lightburn eliminates a lot of the need for even using Corel at all sometimes. I can take, for example, I can take a handwritten recipe, bring it in a Lightburn, I can trace it and it takes me longer to engrave the file which is about 5 minutes, than it does to prepare the file for engraving, just because it's so quick and so powerful inside of Lightburn.
I will say, yeah, Lightburn is definitely, you can set things up just the way you want them, and set the colors to whatever, like I could change this red to, if I select all the red, maybe. If I select all the red, I could change that to green and change that to line, and it would cut out. Obviously, we don't want to do that on our actual door here, but if this was like on paper or fabric or wood, you could cut all that out, and then you could have the blue as an engraving and just kind of run that. You could also change this back to fill. The colors are whatever you want them to be in this program. So I just chose blue and red because they're the first two colors that you see down at the bottom. So it worked for me. But I know I've used universal laser systems before this, and red was cut and blue was raster. So I can see where the confusion comes from there. Different programs have different, meanings. So
Michelle Burrow says, I am able to run our old EPI files on the AP using Lightburn, but not RD Works. That is a great point, Michelle. Without realizing you're making a point, I've said each week that if you don't have Lightburn already for the AP laser, it's well worth the investment to get Lightburn. You can get it through our AP laser support team. You can go right online to get it as well. But Lightburn is extremely powerful software that gives you so much freedom and flexibility in preparing your files, and it can save you hours on design work just in how fast it is able to handle certain files. It's definitely worth the work.
Was it like we like to say, copy, paste, and trace?
Copy, paste, and cut, or copy, paste, and engrave.
Yep.
And it really is that simple sometimes, just to bring it in, and it does all the handling, and it's not going to change the scene for you. You're still going to need some design software, whether it be Corel, Photo Paint, or Adobe Photoshop, or photo handling software like that if you want to edit and do different scenes and put stuff together. But Lightburn definitely has Lightburn definitely has a very strong capability working with a lot of different file types, including those EPI files, like she said.
Any other questions or anything?
No, Frank says, I have both Lightburn and RD Works. Can't remember the last time I used RD Works. I haven't used Lightburn to make drawings for my hand carving projects. Yeah, it's that versatile. It is a very versatile and powerful software. We got this portion of the image, a portion of the door done. If we want to kind of take a look at this.
I don't know if we're able to see it too well.
Where's the sponge you use to apply the? Also, this is what we use to apply the Dawn dish soap. It gives you a really easy film, real evenly spread film of the Dawn. And like I said, I mentioned before, the Dawn works as effective whether it's dry or wet. So if you want to apply the Dawn dish soap to all the panels and then let it set up, you can do that as well. It doesn't have to be wet when it's working. So let me explain a little bit the science behind why the Dawn works so well. When you're laser engraving anything, you'll see that there is an energy reaction with the material. You'll see a bright flash. You know, it's kind of like looking at a light bulb. You shouldn't, it's really hard not to watch a laser, but you really shouldn't stare at it when it's working, because this is going to give off little bright flashes all the time. And that energy reaction, especially with glass, what will happen is without this Dawn or something acting as a catalyst to absorb the unspent energy, it can create flaking or distortions in your glass, because that scattered or that flash of energy that's being spent at the point of impact is distorting your engraving a little bit. What the Dawn is doing is it's acting as an absorbing material that is absorbing that unspent energy, but it's also keeping all those little, I'm going to call it glass dust, kind of contained. So when you clean it off, it's also taking all that glass dust off with it as well. But the biggest thing is it's absorbing that unspent energy, which is allowing us to hit the glass with an effective power, but not over distorting the image because of the energy reaction at the point of contact.
I'd say in the tests that I've done as well, it definitely makes a difference. Everything looks at least a little bit crisper, and like you said, it's a lot easier to clean afterwards, so it definitely helps.
Ray Martinez asked, if we were to do a job like this glass engraving, how would you charge? Well, you have to put the value on your work, Ray. But I am confident that if this door, how much does this door cost us?
It's close to $300.
Close to $300 from Home Depot. We could easily sell this door for $1,000 or more. Mm-hmm. And anyone who's buying doors knows that $1,000 door can still be considered cheap if it's ornate in the design. Okay, so you can take a $300 door. It is a long engraving, but again, you're putting the value on your time. So, yeah. I personally, I have an AP laser in my garage. I don't charge by time, because if I charge by time, I wouldn't make any money. Because I can do a cutting board in 5 minutes, right? So what am I going to charge for 5 minutes? If I put a rate on an hour or by minute, then it just seems like I'm just charging just to charge. So I kind of do it on a by project basis, and what I know my time is worth and the value of the job to me. So, you know, it's kind of like DJing a wedding. Not every wedding is going to be the same price, because there's going to be different demands and different people to work with. So I'm going to charge based on what I need to do to make what I'm comfortable, make the amount of money I'm comfortable with making. So if I think all this work, I need to make at least $700. If you're not willing to pay me $1,000 for it, then I'm not going to do the job. I'm going to put the value at that.
Definitely just think about how much time you're putting into, design. You got to think about that beforehand, what you got to do to prep, how much time does it take you to set up the material in the machine. Once you get going, you'll get a better idea of that. But just think about exactly what Aaron said. What is your time worth?
Frank says, I assume you engraved this on the back of the glass, correct? Frank, what's the back of the glass? It's a door. What's the back on one way in is the front on the other way out. So certainly most glass engravings, in my opinion, look better when you engrave on the back. Mm-hmm. But it also depends on the effect you're going for. So for a door like this, we didn't really focus on front or back, because it's going to be a showpiece. So obviously we can show it front or back, because it's an unhinged door right now. So it's the front or the back, however you define it at the point of installation.
Also, since this design's a bit more organic in nature, defining what, is the front or the back of the design is going to be a little difficult. It just kind of, you could flip that any other way and it'd still look like a finished design, Again,
Frank, on this specific door, the front or back isn't defined because it's an unhinged door. So I'll say yes, I engraved it on what would be on the inside of the home or the inside of the room as you're approaching it if it's an interior door, right? So if you're going to put it, say, in a lanai or a sunroom or something of that nature, it would be on, you know, the inverse side of whichever you're approaching it. So, yes, William Halley says it's unique. Don't sell yourself short. That's the biggest thing, right? If somebody wants a door like this, where else are they going to get a door like this? It's unique. Mm-hmm. If you have Joe and Pops, I'm sorry, Pops isn't a good one. If you have Joe and Jim's laser shop up the road that's doing hack work and for less money, let them put themselves out of business. Spend your time on something you're going to make money off of.
I always like to think about, you know, someone could come out and say, oh, well, I can do that, but they didn't. You did it, so.
Yes, Frank says, I'm going with the cleaning process after it has been installed. Cleaning the glass surface exposed to the elements is easier if it were the smooth side. Absolutely. I'm not going to put my engraving on the outside of a door for a glass door anyways. So anytime I'm doing a glass panel that's an exterior door, I'm definitely going to have the engraving on the interior of that door. That's a great point, Frank. Certainly easier from the elements, especially if you're up here in Michigan where the elements, I guess we're supposed to get Snowmageddon this Thursday night. I'll be southbound heading towards Florida at that time, so if they get 12 to 15 inches of snow, I'll be driving towards 12 to 15 inches of sun. Yes, I don't mind leaving everybody else in the cold.
Well, I'll be stuck here in the snow, so, but I'll cuddle up with some hot chocolate, get some design work done, it'll be fine.
So, before we get to a wrap up here, I'll give a chance for anyone to ask any more questions. I'm going to go ahead and talk about kind of a preview for January. January, because of the holidays, we're going to go in the second week of January. I want to come back to Houston, Frank, but I can only be in so many places at one time. Anyways, preview for January. January, we're going to work on doing some leather. We're going to work on doing some baseball bats, some sporting goods, baseballs, softballs, footballs, basketballs, golf balls. I might work into one of those. I'm going to work on doing a Pyrex dish or some other glass items. I'm going to work on doing some we have some series coming up, including some stuff where we might work on doing a multi-part series on doing a larger file prep for something else. So there's a lot of stuff coming up that's going to be exciting. I am listening to you guys. Mm-hmm. So if you have some ideas and suggestions or questions that you couldn't get in on this live, then please send an email to aplaserlive@aplaser.com, and we will address your question, or if you just have any suggestions or even complaints, give us something. We're always looking to be better for you guys. And again, that email is aplaserlive@aplaser.com for all of your suggestions. And also click on that like button and subscribe on that window, so we can so you can be alerted when we're going to be going live. Sometimes we'll sign up for a live and then we'll forget. But if you get that notification from YouTube or email saying, hey, these guys are going live, you go, oh yeah, I need to jump in there real quick. Mm-hmm. We're going to have a lot of exciting stuff coming up. Is there a way to get a better shot of the engraving? Certainly.
We do still have a few panels left before this is finished up as well. I will say, if you're part of our Facebook user group, I get a shot of this when we're done, just so you can see kind of the whole thing laid out as well, to see how everything looks. But it's really hard to get that in there with the machines. There will definitely be better pictures of it coming as well.
It's also important to note that right now we have not cleaned any of this off because we're waiting until the engraving is done, completely finished. But it's coming out pretty, in my opinion, pretty spectacular. It's exceeding my expectations, I'll say that. It's really, Alicia's really doing a good job putting this door together.
I try. And like Aaron said, we are always open to suggestions, what you guys really want to see. If there's anything out there that you think would be cool to run on our machines, I would love to make that file and run it for you. So you send the email over, comment below, post in the groups, and let us know, and we'll make it happen.
Yes, Frank says get them more thumbs up. It helps their algorithm, and they deserve it. Yes, if for any of you who don't know, right now our world is based on an algorithm. I'm not saying it's a simulation. I'm saying the world is based on an algorithm, and the more you give us a thumbs up, the better exposure we get, and the more people we can get to participate with you guys. 1812 tube is DOPE laser engraving says 1812 tube. What are you asking there? If you can clarify. Yes, great session today. Thanks. Frank says, thank you, Frank, for joining us as always. Appreciate all of you joining us. And as always, please feel free to jump in. Dope laser engraving, you said 1812 tube. If you have a support question, or if you have a support question, please contact our tech support team. If it's a question based on settings or something like that relating to 1812. Can you please show how you're picking the origin for each panel? Maybe move to the next panel. So what we're doing actually is we started, for example, and it's hard to see, but in this panel right here where the laser head is over, we started at the top right corner. We started in the top right corner of that panel. And then we moved to the next panel over and started in the top left corner and made sure that everything was lined up. And then I went to this next panel and started in the top left corner. Then I went down to this bottom panel and started in the top right corner, right here. And then after that panel, I went to the top right corner and we started here. And then we went to this panel and started here. Okay, and then you can either continue the S motion and come down right here, but this one we went back over here and started in the top left corner. It's really a matter of preference, making sure the sizing lines up. I like to start in the corner for my adjoining image, but it's all a matter of preference. Alicia decided to stick with the same origin point, just made sure she was lined up. But with a file like this, it's a little bit more forgiving, so it's going to allow you to move things around. Oh, she did start in the top right corner here. So she was kind of sticking with my advice where she went in the top right corner. And then what I like to do it, so I'm going to marry it up to the side that's already engraved, start in the top right corner, and then I'll come down to the bottom row and probably start from the top left corner, and then top right corner, then top left corner. And it's really just, there's no absolute science to it. It's just a matter of preference and how you decide to do things. I hope that answered your question. No, we're using the 1812 2-inch lens cone, the nozzle, the cone that the laser comes out of, on a 3-inch lens. Basically, on an extension tube, the nozzle comes off. So if I take off the 3-inch nozzle, if I take off the 3-inch nozzle, I can put on the 1812 nozzle, which has a larger hole on it. The link for that is listed in doesn't seem like the right link. Should be up on the screen. But the 1812 nozzle has a larger hole, and it will fit the threading on your extension tube. But just looking real quick. Yes, it allows the cone to clear the wood panels. And again, it's important that if you're using a 3-inch lens, you can't use a regular 2-inch cone because it will clip the laser because it's not condensing fast enough for the size of the hole in the 2-inch nozzle. Great session today. Thank you all for participating. Please look for us. I hope you all have great holidays. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, or whatever you celebrate this time of year. I hope you enjoy the holiday season. And again, any questions, please shoot to aplaserlive@aplaser.com. And I look forward to seeing you all next year in January. I'm going to Florida tomorrow after my daughter's wrestling meet. I'm going to drive from her wrestling meet to Florida. My wife's like, we're not going straight through, are we? I was like, it depends. The answer is yes, we're going straight through. But if I say no, or if I say yes, then she gets irritable. And yes, Frank says y'all need to consider making the extension tubes with longer extensions. I'm going to talk to our manufacturing team and see if we can go ahead and do that. We used to have that, and I'm going to see if we can work on getting that back in stock. Especially since it came up as a question. You know, you see here I have one in my hand. This is a 6-inch extension tube. I'm going to work on seeing if we can get these 6-inch extension tubes back in stock so that we can have a little more flexibility with the laser. So thank you, Frank. Look for those coming up in the near future. After the first year, we should be able to, it might take us a little bit of time to get some of the stuff in stock, but please look for it. It will be coming. Again, if any questions you didn't get in there, please shoot to aplaserlive@aplaser.com, and we'll address your questions as they come up. Please don't think we go back and watch the videos and see if anyone asks any more questions while they watch the video, because we don't have time for that. Shoot an email to aplaserlive@aplaser.com, and we'll get your questions answered. See you all next time. Thank you again, Alicia, for your great work today. Give us the thumbs up, click subscribe, and we'll see you next year.